Welcome to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast that takes you freewheeling down the great internet rabbit hole of trivia.
Each week we pick a starting point, and then who knows where all the twists, turns and tangents will take us. But we'll be sure to unearth a treasure trove of frivolous facts that will be as fascinating as they are, well, useless.
When One Thing Leads to Another is produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich. Our theme music is by Justin Mitchell.
This is Series 2, Episode 20.
The finale!
Well, here we are, the Series 2 finale.
The Series 2 finale.
Or we should say, for our American friends, the Season 2 finale.
Yes.
Perhaps. Yeah, 40 episodes we've made of this little humble podcast.
40 episodes. What a waste of time.
What a glorious waste of time.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It has been fun. And we will be back for a Series 3, will we not?
Damn straight.
Yeah, you got that right. We will be back
Sister.
very soon. And so this might be a good opportunity to implore you, our lovely listeners, if you haven't already, to subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts, so you won't miss Series 3. And you'll be the first to know when we're back.
Absolutely. And review us. Give us a good review. Go on.
Oh, come on, we come cup in hand.
Yes.
Much like Oliver Twist with his bowl saying, "Please, sir,
Say nice things.
say nice things and give us a 5-star review." That would be fabulous. That helps us gain a few more listeners, which would be
Yes.
nice, wouldn't it?
Would be nice. And we're on Instagram. Come and find us and follow us on Instagram at When One Thing Leads to Another. And we're on that Twitter as well, that tweeter.
That poisonous, toxic cesspit called Twitter. Yeah, we are at When One Thing. So come and find us on there.
Yeah, follow us, like our things that we share.
And recently, we're now also on YouTube.
So I hear.
Yeah, which is rather good. If you're hard of hearing, you can put the old captions on, the subtitling, and you can read all the
Bollocks.
You can read all the fascinating facts and tantalising trivia. And also, of course, there's a comment section, so you can add your own
Positive comments only, please.
positive comments. Perhaps you've got further information,
Oh, yes.
more facts on things of what we've been talking about.
Absolutely, because if you send us in any information related to anything that we've talked about, we will include it in our finale episode.
Correctamundo, yes we will, which is what we're going to do
Yes.
on this here episode.
Yep.
We're going to read some of the messages and emails, what we have received.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we need to thank a few people, don't we, I suppose,
We do.
actually. Most of all, of course, our lovely listeners.
Yeah, thanks for listening to our drivel.
Our nonsense. It's terribly nice of you. And we'd also like to thank feedspot.com, which in their words is the internet's largest human curated database of bloggers and podcasts.
Oh.
Yeah, and we are in their top 30 best facts podcast.
Are we?
Yeah, we are.
Wow.
Which was very nice of them to do. We're actually number 8. I mean, I don't want to blow our own trumpet or anything, but number 8.
That's pretty good.
So, why don't you log on to them and find some more blogs and podcasts and all the rest of it. And talking of charts, Helen, well, we have been reaching the heady heights of chart success in the Apple podcast charts.
Have we?
Yeah. And as I've said before, we don't like to blow our own trumpets, but check this out. We reached the dizzying heights of number 247 in Apple's comedy podcast charts at one point.
Straight in at number 247, it's When One Thing Leads to Another.
And if you think that chart position is impressive, then check this out. We reached number 183 in the same chart in Luxembourg.
Oh, in Luxembourg.
Yeah. In Italy, number 48.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And wait for it, cue drum roll. Number 2 in Macedonia.
Oh.
Yeah, so I imagine we are essentially celebrities in Macedonia.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get across there.
Well, let's go. We'll go there and live the celebrity life.
We'll enjoy the red carpet reception, which I'm sure we will get. Right, so it's time to go through some of our emails.
Yeah.
Now, all the way back to Series 1, if you cast your mind all the way back there, to Episode 6, which
Yeah.
was called Penny Come Quick,
One of my favourites.
where we found out a bunch of amusing and downright rude place names around the world.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will recall. We learned about how a parish council in the Devonshire village of Shitterton had installed a massive piece of Purbeck stone with the name of the village on it.
Yeah.
Do you remember, in a bid to
I do.
put an end to the village signs being stolen by people who were clearly amused by the name Shitterton?
I do, yeah, that was a good one.
And you may also recall that in episode 10 of Series 1, called Oven Drama, we told the story of how when he was a young rascal, the celebrity chef and TV personality Gino D'Acampo had burgled Paul Young's house.
He did. Served 2 years in prison for it.
That's right. Well, a great friend of this podcast, Dave Orton from Cambridgeshire.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave. Messaged us to tell us that on the inside cover of Paul Young's album No Parlay,
Yeah.
that was sometime in the 80s, wasn't it? You will find a photograph of the old Shitterton village sign that used to get nicked all the time.
What a funny coincidence.
So there's a little coincidence, and we missed a trick there. And incidentally, on that Paul Young album cover art, the photograph is accompanied with the question underneath, have you ever? So, Shitterton, have you ever shit a ton?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
which is a pretty poor gag.
Paul.
Don't give up your day job.
We had a little message on Instagram from Jay in Liverpool.
Hello, Jay.
Hi, Jay. And it was from Series 1, Episode 8, the Shirley episode, when we got onto the subject of the Beatles' album cover for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. Do you remember we were talking about Shirley Temple, how she featured 3 times?
That's right, 3 times on the cover.
On the cover.
Yeah.
And I shared a little clip of that on Instagram, and Jay commented that he recalls on the sleeve notes of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band,
Yeah.
the album, there is some information about the story of making the album cover.
That's right. I think originally the album had lots of cutouts included in the LP record.
That's right. One of the cutouts,
Yeah.
who was originally in, but it was decided that perhaps it was not appropriate,
Oh, yeah.
was Hitler.
Oh,
Yeah, John Lennon originally wanted Hitler included, but I think Jan Howarth, who
she co-art directed the cover, didn't she, with
Peter Blake,
Sir Peter Blake?
she
yeah.
put it down to the folly of youth.
Oh, yeah, the folly of youth.
Yeah, but they got together and said, look, guys, Hitler, no,
I
he's not
think-
going to make the cut.
I think, would you mind awfully if we got rid?
Yeah. So thanks, Jay, for that. That was a really interesting little nugget, and I enjoyed that.
Okay, also in Series 1, Episode 12, Bob,
Oh, yeah,
where we started off with amusing story of Bob
Mortimer.
And we somehow got onto the subject of Carry On films, and specifically the story that Sid James had run up a bit of a gambling debt
Yeah.
and happened to mention it at a party to somebody who was high up in the Marks and Spencer's organisation.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
And a bet was apparently made that if the next Carry On film could name drop the company into the script,
Yeah.
then he would clear the debt.
Yeah.
This executive would clear the debt. And sure enough, in one scene in Carry On Cleo, slaves are being traded at Marcus and Spencer's.
I remember it well. It's Warren Mitchell
Oh, is
who
it?
is in
Yes.
charge, yeah.
Okay.
He plays Spensius.
Oh, okay. And you might remember that we'd also found out that Sid James had cunningly put some more product placement in Carry On Again Doctor.
Right,
and we said
yeah.
we'll have to watch it to
Oh,
see if we
yes.
can spot it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there is a scene in which the Sid James character rather blatantly opens a cupboard full of Johnny Walker Red Label whiskey. And so I went digging and I found a bit of blurb about it on IMDb,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I want to share with you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that when Sid was given the script
Mm.
of Carry On Again Doctor, without telling the producers, he took it straight to the London office of Johnny Walker and said he had a great idea for some product placement. And if they gave him 4 cases of his favourite whiskey a case being 12 bottles, he would guarantee their product would be prominently seen in the new film.
Get him, the sly old fox.
He was a right one, wasn't he? And on the day that the scene was to be shot, with dummy bottles just marked whiskey, he turned up on set with these cases of Johnny Walker Red Label and told the director, Gerald Thomas, what he had done. Now, Gerald Thomas did not like being usurped by any of the cast, and Sid was previously responsible, as we previously mentioned,
for the Marcus and
Spensius, and got into a bit of bother about it. So he was unhappy. However, Sid said he would refuse to do the scene unless the Johnny Walker bottles were included.
Right.
And he was backed up by his co-star in the scene, Jim Dale.
Jim Dale was probably getting a couple of bottles, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, we'll come to that. Well, the director, Gerald Thomas, contacted producer Peter Rogers for advice. And mindful of holding up filming over the dispute, as well as not wanting to upset Sid James, who was popular with both the rest of the Carry On cast and the public, Thomas was told, just film the scene. Let's get it done
with the real whiskey,
with the Johnny Walker whiskey, to keep Sid happy and therefore not fall behind on the filming schedule. And so the scene was left in the final cut, and Johnny Walker came good on their end of the bargain and gave the cases of whiskey to Sid. And Sid thanked Jim Dale and the props master on the day for backing him up by giving them 4 bottles each. And he gave 2 to the director, Gerald Thomas, and 2 bottles to Peter Rogers, the producer too.
He was an entrepreneur, wasn't he, old Sid James?
He was.
Okay, well, I got a message from Vicky, who lives in Germany.
Guten Tag, Vicky.
Guten Tag, Vicky. And after Series 2, Episode 3, which started at the Wall of Death, if you remember,
Death.
Vicky alerted me to their Pitz Todderswand. I don't know how to pronounce it. Pitz Todderswand.
Okay.
Which is their Wall of Death.
German Wall of Death.
German Wall of Death, which appears every year at the Oktoberfest.
Oh, wow.
They have their very own Wall of Death, yeah. It's 8 metres tall and 12 metres in diameter. And it features daring rides on motorcycles and go-karts. And it promises acrobatics, blind rides and wild pursuits.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like you need another reason to go to a beer festival. Well, what better than the Wall of Death?
Yeah, and it's been going for 80 years.
Wow.
So we need to get over to the Oktoberfest and see a real-life Wall of Death. Dankeschön, Vicky.
Dankeschön. Now, another loyal listener and friend of the show, Tom Lipscomb from Luxembourg.
Yeah.
And of course, he may well be in part responsible for us reaching the heady heights of number 183 in the Apple comedy podcasts of Luxembourg. So thanks for that, Tom. But yes, Tom got in touch about episode 5 of Series 2, which was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, yeah.
And in that episode, we found out that Weird Al Yankovic had recorded a parody of the Knack's tune, My Sharona.
Right.
And he changed it into My Bologna.
Oh, yeah.
My Bologna. Well, Tom takes a keen interest in US language etymology.
Oh, does he?
Yes, he does. And he wrote to us. He said, quote, the delicious sausage byproduct, mortadella, is a native of Bologna, in Italy, of course. And when imported to the US, they dropped the name mortadella and simply called it Bologna sausage.
Right.
But of course, in America, Bologna became Bologna.
Right.
Okay. However, writes Tom, an Americanized cheap version of the original came out, and the name was then bastardized by Italian New Yorkers who didn't much care for the cheaper version to bologna. By Italian New Yorkers to bologna.
Right. Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so hence the birth of the American phrase, what a load of baloney.
I see.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. That is properly interesting.
Yeah, danke, Tom. Do they say danke in Luxembourg? Do they speak German? Sort of Flemish?
There's all sorts, isn't there? Merci.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Gracias. Let's just cover everything.
Grazie. Oh, I've got a quick one from Nairi.
Oh, yes.
in the Northern Territory in Australia,
All the way down here, down under, mate.
who was listening to episode 8, series 2, episode 8, March.
March.
And we were going on about all things March, weren't we? Mars, all things named after Mars.
March-based facts.
Yeah. Well, she said, I can't believe you didn't mention marzipan.
Marzipan.
Marzipan, literally translated as the bread of March.
Well, I never knew that. How about that?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, Nairi, for that.
Thanks, mate. Okay, now Spandau Ballet, the band, have cropped up in a number of our episodes.
They have.
And we discovered the origin of Spandau Ballet's name,
Yeah,
which
we
you
did.
may recall came about when DJ and friend of the band, Robert Elms, had seen some graffiti on a Berlin wall which read, quote, Rudolf Hess, all alone dancing the Spandau Ballet.
Yeah.
And supposedly it referred to the involuntary jerky movement that an inmate from Spandau prison would make upon being hanged.
That's right. Cheery stuff.
But Spandau superfan Steph Atkin from Worcester wrote to us to tell us that they had read a slightly different but equally bleak version.
Oh.
Right? That Spandau refers to a particular machine gun that was used by the German forces in the First World War. And the ballet refers to how soldiers would move, you know, a similar jerky movement when
Yeah.
they were being gunned down.
Oh, my God. Equally as bleak.
Thanks, Steph.
Okay, I've got a quick one about Series 2, Episode 12, Bhutan and Beyond.
Oh, yes.
From Claire in Air.
Has she got lovely hair?
She has got lovely hair. Claire said, do you remember we got onto the subject of absolute beginners?
We absolutely did.
Well, Claire messaged me to tell us that her brother-in-law's cousin
Brother-in-law's cousin. Yep.
was in Absolute Beginners.
Well, goodness me.
And she gave me her name and I did a bit of Googling. She's actually quite a famous actress. She's
on.
called Carmen Ejogo.
Okay.
And she's a really successful actress who at one stage, very briefly in 1998, was married to Tricky.
Tricky, the
trip
trip-hop star.
Yes, she was in Absolute Beginners when she was about 13. She played the role of Carmen in Absolute Beginners. That is Claire's brother-in-law's cousin.
Wow. Claire from Air with the lovely hair.
Yep.
Thank you for that. And talking of that very same episode,
Yes.
from Bhutan and Beyond,
Yep.
we got onto the subject you might recall of John Logie Baird.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Bhutan had a ban on televisions.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
as recently as 1999. They lifted the ban in 1999.
Flipping heck.
Yeah, so we got on to John Logie Baird,
Yeah.
and he was the man who first constructed a television.
Yeah.
Well, Laura Davison got in touch to draw our attention to the fact that John Logie Baird also invented socks.
Did he?
Yeah, or I should say undersocks.
Undersocks?
Yeah.
What the heck are undersocks?
Well, I'll explain. Yeah, apparently, in the First World War, soldiers on the Western Front line often suffered from trench foot.
Oh, yeah.
And this was due to the wet mud that was found in the trenches. And it was impossible for the soldiers to have dry feet. And the resulting trench foot could lead to amputation in some serious cases. So, good old John Logie Baird invented the Baird undersock.
Right.
Now, Baird himself suffered from cold feet and colds, etc. So he knew all about the cold feet.
Right.
And Baird discovered that if he put newspaper inside his shoes, that would absorb the moisture that comes from the feet.
Oh.
And so he came up with the idea of the Baird undersock, which was basically a sock sprinkled with borax.
Right.
And this would absorb the moisture that the foot gave off.
Oh.
And Baird's first attempt at marketing the undersock was an advert placed in the People's Friend, and it resulted in just one sale.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, so what he did was he supplied the British Army with a bunch to trial,
Yeah.
and the testimonies were so good, his undersock business took off. One from a Corporal H.G. Roberts that said, quote, I find the Baird undersocks keep my feet in splendid condition out here in France. Foot trouble is one of our worst enemies, but thanks to the Baird undersock, mine are in the pink, and I think they should be supplied to all soldiers.
Wow.
Yeah, and so later on, with the money he made from his undersock business, he went over to Trinidad because, like I say, he suffered from colds and the cold weather. So he thought, I'm going to get myself over to somewhere warm. So he went over to Trinidad and he tried out a jam making business, which alas failed.
Oh.
And so he came back to Blighty and invented essentially the telly.
Okay, just a quick one from David P. in Germany as well. He sent us a little message after Series 2, Episode 13, which was 7 Tears by the Goombay Dance Band.
7 tears. And
you remember we talked about key changes?
We did.
Well, David sent me a really interesting little message with a new word, a German word that I didn't know.
Oh.
And the word is, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so apologies in advance, David. Ohrwurm.
How are you spelling that, please?
It's Ohrwurm.
Oh, yeah.
Ohrwurm. And it's the German word for earworm.
I love it.
And he said, you know how you get an earworm? Like, for example, 7 Tears by the Goombay Dance Band, you evil bastards. So I think we gave David an Ohrwurm. It's a good song to have as an Ohrwurm, I would say. Okay, I want to add in a little something that I couldn't quite fit in last week's episode, Glastonbury.
Oh, yeah.
It's another interesting fact about Dirty Dancing.
Go on then.
That we couldn't quite include. I thought this was amazing, right? So the part of Baby's mother
Yeah.
was played by actress Kelly Bishop.
Right.
But originally the role was given to Lynn Lipton.
Right, okay.
Okay. But she became ill during the first week of shooting.
Right, okay.
So they shot the first few scenes, then she got sick and she was replaced by Kelly Bishop.
Okay.
Okay. But if you watch the opening scenes where the Housemans arrive at Kellerman's in the car,
Right.
she is briefly visible, the original actress, Lynn Lipton, in the beginning. She's in the front seat, obviously, and she's quite clearly not the actress who played Baby's mother because she's got a big head of blonde hair. Now, I read this and I thought, no, surely not. You mustn't be able to notice it. And it's really obvious.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for some reason they didn't bother reshooting that scene.
They
Or why
didn't-
didn't they give the new actress just a blonde wig?
Yeah, you'd think it would be easier just to reshoot the scene. It's so short.
I wonder if the editor just slightly shuffled around on their seat uncomfortably.
I thought, oh, no one will notice. It'll be all right.
That'll be all right.
Thank you for listening to When One Thing Leads to Another, a podcast produced and presented by us, Helen and Bill Rich.
If you've enjoyed this episode, then please rate and review us on wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe, and that way you'll never miss an episode.
We'd also love to hear from you, especially if we've got any of our information wrong, or you have some more fascinating facts about something we've talked about, or you could even suggest a subject for our starting point.
Our email address is whenonethingleadstoanother@gmail.com.
A massive thank you to Justin Mitchell for letting us use his music as our theme song. It's a track called Homo Erectus, taken from his fantastical album called The Garden of Earthly Delights, which is available to buy from bandcamp.com.
Thanks also to Acast for hosting us. And we will be back for a Series 3, will we not?
Damn straight!
Please note that all facts have been found on the internet and therefore we cannot vouch for their veracity.